Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel and to my craft room. I wanted to talk a little bit about my craft room, and I wanted to do it in a bit of a different way from just doing like a normal craft room tour. I've seen quite a lot of them on YouTube. Some of them are just showing you all of the things they have. Other ones are showing you the room and the personality of the person, which I love. And other ones are talking or focusing on storage and organization sometimes. And I wanted to do something a bit different. So this video is probably going to be very talky. I'm going to chat with you and just explain the process that I went through to really understand my creative process and set up my craft room in a way that facilitated me crafting more, which of course is the whole reason why we have a craft room, and to reflect my personality as well. That was something that I had struggled with previously, and I was following trends and rather than really being authentic to who I was. So that process has been really enlightening for me as a person and understanding who I am. So with that said, I think that we have all gone through the process of having too much stuff in our craft room, not knowing what to do with it, and struggling really to make space for everything that we are interested in. And I think everyone's got to a point where they fill their craft room with so much stuff they don't even know where to begin. And about 3 years ago, I would definitely say that I'd gotten to this place. My craft room became the junk room that we all chucked everything in, and I got to the point where I didn't even like the room. I didn't want to come in. I couldn't physically get in the door. So there really wasn't much crafting happening in this craft room. So one day I decided just to come and climb over everything and just sit in the room. And I don't really know why I did this, but that was the beginning of this life-changing process for me. And I would say that I just sat here and I listened to how I felt. I listened to how the room made me feel. I looked at the things in the room. And what I realized was that I had a lot of guilt and shame about the things in this room, because I had gotten into a cycle of, because I couldn't craft but I still love crafting, I would go out and go shopping instead of participating in my hobby because I couldn't get into my room. But all that did was perpetuate this guilt shame cycle, and I realized that if I didn't break this, there was no point me even having this hobby, because I would never get to create again. And that made me feel really sad, and it also gave me the motivation to deal with it and look for a solution. And it took me a long time, I'm not going to lie, but I learned so much about myself that I really wanted to share it with all of you, because I haven't really seen a video about discovering your creative process and making a room that fits that and who you are. So I guess that's my unique edge to this craft room tour type organization category. Yeah, so let's get into it. So after I had that experience sitting in the room, I realized that I needed to get rid of things that made me feel that way. I had also been crafting for about 10 years at that point, maybe 9-10 years, something like that. I'd accumulated a lot of things. I'd bought things when I first started crafting which I thought would be great, that turned out not to suit my style, or it was a trend and it'd gone out of fashion and I was no longer into that stuff. Or, this is a really great example, I had lots of paper packs, and I would buy a stack of paper, say like 6x6, and I would love 80% of the stuff in there, but there would be 20%, like a few papers that I don't like and I would never use, but I was holding on to them, and I was thinking to myself, why am I holding on to them? Because then every time I went into my paper basket, I was seeing all the stuff I didn't like at the front, because I put the stuff at the front to use up first, and I'd be like, oh, so depressed looking through everything. So I got rid of and purged a lot of stuff. I broke up paper packs if I needed to. I broke up collections of things if I needed to. And that was really difficult for me because I'm a bit OCD. I like to feel like I've kept things together. And so that was difficult for me. But when I overcame that, it really made such a massive impact on me. I suddenly felt excited by everything I was putting my hands on. I felt joyful. I was like, oh, I've got so many ideas. I actually got the opposite problem where I had so many ideas I couldn't actually focus on one thing. And I'll probably make another video about that, because I had to come up with a solution for that. So after I had done the purge, which I think is always good to do when you are reevaluating a room, because no doubt you've changed over time and the things that were important before are no longer important to you now, or they may be, in which case you need to bring them out and make sure that the things that you value are the things that stand out in your room. So the next thing I did was to sit down and look at my crafting process, and I sat and I made a card, because that's my main craft, I would say. It's been the one that I've consistently done for the last 10 years. And I'm very much an artist now. I love to paint. I used to be an acrylic painter, and I'm moving more into watercolour. I've fallen in love with painting again since I've done this process. So I have a lot of art supplies in here, and I also am looking to start up a business which is going to be more clothing related, so I've got some sewing supplies, a sewing machine, etc. in here too. And it was really important for me to have areas in my room that reflect my current interests, because they change all the time. So I really decided that my desk would be the zone that reflected my current interests. So the real estate that's closest to me is what I love the most and what I use the most. So to the card making process, I really wrote down and was mindful about everything that I was doing as I was making that card. So the first thing I did was went to my 6x6 paper pads, and I chose a paper that I wanted to use. It had a pattern on it, and I knew that I needed some cardstock to go with that pattern paper, so I picked some of the colours that were in the paper. And then I began to choose my dies and my stamp that I wanted to use, the sentiments and the main image for the card. And then I embellished my card, and then I put my bling on it. And that was really a basic version of my card making process. And what I really learned about myself from doing that was that I craft by colour. I look at a card and I think, oh, that pattern paper has got, I don't know, teal, blue and coral in it. And therefore I want something teal, blue or coral to stick on my card. I don't think, oh, that's a really cute card, but it needs something like a brad there. I think, oh, I need something pink to balance it out. So I really realised that I craft by colour, and instead of having jars of buttons up on the wall and brad somewhere else and eyelet somewhere else and other embellishments somewhere else and ribbon and so on and so on, I just thought, wouldn't it be great if all the pink stuff was together? So I went to Hobbycraft and I bought the really useful rainbow drawers, and I labelled them with colours. I share some colour families in one drawer so that I can fit everything in, and that to me has been the most life-changing thing that I did in my craft room. I no longer had shelves and shelves of things on my wall. I mean, this bookcase behind you, I used to have a bigger one as well in this tiny room, and it was so crowded I felt like everything was literally shouting at me because I was visually just like overstimulated by everything and I couldn't focus on something. So I think that was really significant for me. I also started to store my cardstock by colour, and originally I used the same rainbow drawers, but I found that I didn't like lifting them when they were laying flat because I would ding the edges up. So I changed to a file folder um, method so that I wasn't ruining my cardstock taking it in and out. And it also made it easier to keep things in shade order, like so the light red at the front and going to darker, maybe more brown tones. And that was really helpful too when I was trying to find the right shade of a colour to go with a pattern paper, because then I knew if it wasn't between these two sheets of paper, like a dark and a light, I didn't have a mid-tone. And yeah, that was great. I love doing that. And also I really just love rainbow order. It just makes me feel really calm and peaceful because I know exactly where what I want is going to be. I also store my alcohol markers by colour order, and when I say colour order, I don't go by what's on the cap. I made my own swatch and things that I know blend well together. So like for example my ivory and my blush marker I use for skin tones, my pro markers, and so I always keep those together where they belong, so that it's really easy for me to just pull those and use them straight away, and I don't have to think because I've already thought about what blends well together. And I tweak that, you know, as I get to learn my medium. And I do that with my other markers as well, like whether that be my zig markers or whatever. The other thing I did was I really noticed that I was struggling to find things that I knew I had, but I couldn't quite put my hands on them. And it was because I had things that were similar all over the room. So for example, scissors, I had some in one place, some in another place, some in my sewing box, some were in a pencil case, some were in a pot, and it was chaotic. So I started to store like items with like things. So now all of my paper is in one area. It's no longer some under my desk, some on top of the bookcase, some somewhere else in the drawer. It's all in one place. The only time I deviate from that is when I need to store something differently because of its function. So for example, my paper scraps I don't store with my main cardstock. I have a little basket right next to my die cutting machine because I noticed that that's where I use most of my scraps up. And I also set myself a challenge every month to go through my scrap basket and to make a card using those scraps so that I do it. And otherwise I just hoard this stuff, and at the end of the month if there's stuff in there that I don't think I'm going to use, I chuck it away and I recycle it, or you know, give it away, whatever. Or I'll die cut things for other people and just give those die cuts away, so it's something nice to do with that I would have just chucked away. The other thing I noticed is that my passions were changing. So as I said before, I had to make more room for art in my life. I also became very much into art journaling, because I found out that I was actually ill, and I started to create a recovery journal to document my process and vent some of my frustrations. So I needed to have a calm space where I could come and do that and really seriously work on myself. And I also started to do colouring books, and I'm sure everybody is into colouring books now, but I wasn't at that point, and I couldn't find my pencils. I had tins of pencils that I got from Spectrum Noir, and they all had like different shades of green in them, and I just wanted a green. I didn't want to have to go through 5 tins to get them, so I started storing all of my pencils together, except for my art ones, because when I'm doing a piece of art I want it to be light fast and I want it to last a long time, so I have those separately. And that's again another example of the function of the pencil being different, which is why I keep them separate. Oh yeah, the other thing that I noticed about myself when I was doing making the card process and being mindful about what I was doing is I realised that I make cards by occasion, and that's probably not a big shock because most people do that. You sit down, you make a birthday card. I noticed more though that was sentiments rather than images. But if I have images that are specifically themed as birthday, I store all of that themed stuff together, and then everything else I store by a different category. So whether it be nature, so like I have a lot of butterflies, for example, or kids type stuff like monsters and aliens and dinosaurs, that kind of thing. And that has really helped too. And I've done that with my embellishments. So any themed embellishments go into a folder. Just behind me here I have 12 by 12 plastic folders that I keep the themed embellishments in, because I tend to only get them out when I'm making a specific type of card. And it also reminds me that I have those themed embellishments to use up. I'm actually quite good at finding things to use for a occasion that are not themed. So I learned something about myself, and I probably won't be buying themed like papers and things like that again in the future. I will stick to basic patterns and things that I can use for any occasion. So hopefully I'll save myself some money too. And then I would say the last part of my process was about choosing my bling, if you like. So for me that was wet glitter or dry glitter, and rhinestones or pearls or enamel dots. So because they're finishing touches, I do them last, and it feels like a very separate part of my process for me. So for example, if I have some pink pearls, I don't put them in my pink drawer necessarily. I put them in my bling drawer. Unless my bling drawer is too full, then I might put the pink ones in there just to use them up. And that if I've put something in my drawers, it says to me that I want to use those up, because my core supply is going to be in the drawer next to me. And I also learnt something about myself, that I don't tend to use coloured gems or pearls anymore, because I have my pro markers. I can colour a plain white one or a clear one to be the exact colour. So again, I learned something about myself, and I don't need to buy lots of different, you know, pearls and stuff of different shades and have 50 packets in my drawer. I just have the shapes that I like, whether it be a flourish or just plain gems or in a row or whatever I need, and that's enough for me. And yeah, I would say that's really helped me. And once I've sorted out everything and I've put everything into categories, even my dies and embossing folders, I found that I could get to what I wanted, and I was using it more. And yeah, it's been life-changing. I've created so much stuff. I remember one week I sat down, I made 41 cards. 41 cards in 1 week. I need to upload that video for you too. And I'm now selling them on Etsy, so I'm being much more productive than I've ever been. And I'm so happy, and I feel really privileged to have this space and to have somewhere that I can go and enjoy my craft and my hobby and my passion, really. So I know this has been a bit of a talky video, but I feel like I learnt so much, and I haven't seen a lot of people talk about how they set up their craft room, so I really wanted to share that, and I hope that it helps someone. And if it just helps one person on the process that I went through, then I'll be really happy, because I think that we all deserve to have a craft room that we really love. So if you made it through this whole video, thank you so much for listening to me, and I hope you come back and check out my videos in the future, and happy crafting!